In some ways, Resident Evil Village feels like a culmination for the franchise that began in 1996 on the original PlayStation. RE Village looks to be taking bits and pieces from some of the best entries in the series and mashing them all together while adding a very tall vampire lady for good measure. The result is a game that bears striking similarity to Resident Evil 4, mainly due to the fact that both take place in a village. As this is positioned as a sequel to 2017's Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, RE Village remains in first person, with nothing else in view but your weapon and the richly detailed environments ahead of you. Like Resident Evil 2 Remake, you'll be stalked and pursued by a mysterious assailant, but this time it isn't a tall Goliath in a trench coat and fedora. You'll be stalked by, well, her.
You won't live long, even if you run.
And her.
I haven't cut open a man in a while.
And her.
A healthy man's blood. I can't wait.
But enough introducing the game, let's talk about what I thought of it. The first thing RE Village will draw your attention to is the complexity of its environments and the game's elevated attention to detail over its predecessor. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard was a good-looking game when it came out, but I think trading 7's muted swamps and desecrated Louisiana mansion for the wintry werewolf-infested village and decadent royal sheen of the castle interiors leads to much more visually appealing locations to explore. Even as I was rushing through these play spaces trying to see and do everything within each demo's 30-minute time frame, that visual upgrade over 7 was immediately apparent, and I was constantly reminded of that fact as each scenario played out. In terms of puzzle design throughout both demos, I think they left a little to be desired, but I believe this is more a byproduct of developing a demo around a short 30-minute play session, and less indicative of how the final game will handle its puzzles. Although it is fair to say that the last few RE games, including the remakes of 2 and 3, haven't lent into super complex puzzles. They sort of act as smaller roadblocks to ramp up the overall tension and lead players down certain pathways to scare you through scripted moments. As I mentioned before, RE Village sticks to the path 7 lay forward with a return to the first-person perspective. I was very much a fan of this change back in 2017, but after experiencing the greatness that is RE2 Remake and its third-person perspective, I found myself missing that perspective in this demo. Third person is so classically Resident Evil that even after experiencing 7 and really enjoying it, being in first person for Village feels off for the series.
Hear our voice, together as one in reverence. We call on thee, within the endless dark, to deliver us into fate's hands. As the midnight moon rises on black wings, so we make our sacrifice and await the light at the end.
I also think being in first person makes it harder for me to relate and connect with the central protagonist, who is once again Ethan Winters. When they first announced that Ethan was back as the protagonist for RE Village, I'm fairly sure I let out an audible, really? Because he was so one note, so bland and plain, and any other objective you could drum up to describe the mehness that was Ethan Winters. But I will say, even in the short time I spent in his shoes, Ethan was infinitely more emotive and interesting this time around. He even gets angry and questions why this is happening again. Something he somehow didn't consider back when it happened the first time in RE7.
Why the fuck is this happening again?
The demos also gave me a limited idea of how combat will play out in Village. And once again, I'm going to seem a little negative on this front, because the combat and overall movement felt a bit weightless. I'm not entirely sure what they've changed since 7, but Ethan felt nimbler in a kind of bad way. Like his feet weren't touching the ground and you sort of just hovered through environments. In terms of weaponry, I only had a chance to use the pistol in both demos, because for some reason I felt like it was a good idea to conserve shotgun ammo, like I was playing the game for real. And it wasn't a demo. And once again, I feel like the pistol lacked the punch it did back in 7. I wasn't sure if this was actually a thing that had changed since RE7, or maybe it was how the game felt on console, so I went back and played a small slice of the game on Series X, and nope, it felt like how I played it on PC. I've sort of concluded that this might be a change to make more intense, overwhelming combat sections feel more kinetic and responsive, but at least in the demo, I felt like it played and overall felt a bit worse than how RE7 played. I know a lot of my points come across as quite negative, but I did really enjoy my time with the demos. It's more the minutiae around the demo itself and how Capcom has elected to give players a chance to experience the game before launch that rubs me the wrong way, and less about the game itself, which I feel confident will exceed my expectations when it finally releases on Xbox Series X and Series S and Xbox One and PS4 and PS5 and PC on May 7th. Also, the demo should technically be out right now for all platforms for the week, so go experience it for yourself. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it.